Okay, well, let's get started. Thank you for joining us all this afternoon. The better talk is in the other room. Why have you come here? Um, right, someone's got to come here, right? So this afternoon's session is going to kick off with Nuno. He's a beautiful, beautiful man and literally gets paid to have more style than substance. Nuno. Okay.
Hello? So, my talk is about design trends. They come and they go, I think. We'll talk about if they come and they go, and some people think they don't, some people think they do. So, first thing, my name is Nuno Pinheiro. I've been doing design for a few years, about 10, 12. I started on my degree is in civil engineering. I come from a slightly different role. I entered into KDE. You have the booth there. Then I started working for KDAB and been doing UI, UX design for a couple of years, a bit more than a couple of years. So, what is this talk about? I don't know if you noticed, but there was a huge fight over the internet about the iOS new design trends and about skeomorphism being so wrong and this new thing being so right and it's going to wipe the world. And some people agree, some people don't. I'm not going to share my opinion right now. So, but what ticked me to submit this talk was this article here that probably a lot of you guys seen it. It really was like one of those articles to try to catch hits on the interwebs, and they tried to coin the phrase authentic design in trying to describe what this new design paradigms we see are. And they talk a lot about that, and some parts I agree with, some parts I don't. But let's try to see first how we got to this place. So in the beginning there was Xerox, or depending on your favorite patent lawyer, Apple or whoever. And this is like one of the first UI graphical user interfaces. It was the Xerox Star information system. It had awesome things like windows and icons and things like that, but it was severely limited by the technology. And the technology was monochromatic. Basically, you could do black or white, and that's it. And the screens were very small. So to design things for that, they copied basically a desktop, what their interpretation of a physical desktop is. So in a way, and depending on your definition of skeomorphism, this is a big skeomorphism. Things evolved, technology evolves, and we got color. And we can do by this time only 16 shades of different colors. Windows 3.1. And over the years, designers were very limited by the technology and tried to push for different things for other things. And when the technology got us, by the end, we gone overboard. And we started using everything that we had available. We had transparency, so let's use it. We started to have better fonts with anti-aliasing, and we gone and use all of those. And some people went a little bit overboard and did things like this. And those things got a lot of problems, and people designers started to backlash a lot of Apple a lot for this kind of UIs that are, as they say, skeomorphic. Skeomorphic, a little bit about skeomorphism is a big word that people like to use it, and they use it sometimes without proper context. Skeomorphism is a word that comes from physical design, from object design. It's every time someone would put, like, for example, in a plastic coating over an object, a print of a wooden anything. So it's a negative way of saying, saying that you're passing out as something else. And this term has been imported into our design or user interface design for doing things like drop shadows or textures on windows and things like that. So what the article goes on talking about is that this authentic design is a manifestation of a desire of greater authenticity in design. I didn't quite get it, so the other one was fake. But anyway, the way I got it is that what he's talking about here is trying to go more for only for form follows function and that sort of conversation. So trying to get rid of all the things that are not explicitly needed for the user to understand what the user interface is all about. But my question was, what really makes something authentic? And they have a definition for that. And their definition is that authentic design aims to pierce from the falsehood and do away with superfluousness. Yeah, nice word. So what I get, so okay, that means that the definition is that the other one is fake and we're real. Good. That works for me. And throughout the article, the impression is that we reached a eureka moment. Like, we have this method now that will last forever. We just have to apply it, and everybody will be happy forever. It's great, amazing. Now, I'm a civil engineer from back in the day. My sister is an architect. So it was always interesting for me to see the relationships between the designers and developers in this world, and comparing it to my experience into the civil engineering architecture world, where those types of relations are very well set in stone, how they work, and what is the work from one people and the work from the other, and how the decision hierarchy is done. So this problem here is something that I used to discuss with my sister a lot of years ago, which I found, I think I've heard this conversation before. Where in civil engineering and in works, again, in the beginning, houses looked like this. And they looked like this because this was the techniques and materials people had access to. So they were like shacks. Really crudely made houses with materials that people had at hand. But then the techniques evolved, people incorporated stone, started learning a few processes, and started to create a little bit bigger buildings, a little bit more interesting, and going high was a big thing. And we had the Gothic cathedrals and stuff like that, and a lot of not math. It was methods that architect slash civil engineer. Actually, you know why civil engineer is called a civil engineer? It's because before civil engineer there was religious engineering and military engineering. The civil part is because it was for civil buildings. That's why it's called civil engineer. So the religious engineerings of the time were developing techniques that would allow the buildings to grow higher and higher and higher. As they incorporated more and more work into building those buildings, they created a new sort of skillful man that would be able to create more complex things. So the evolution of design trends over the years tended sometimes to go into one of these things, and it used to be overly worked elements like in the Baroque or in some um, um, Victorian decorations, and it comes from people being skilled enough to pull off these types of ornamentary things, and you can see that as well in buildings. I really wanted to put a picture here of Baroque, but it really doesn't work as well because Baroque is mostly you can see in the churches, in the insides of the churches, the works in the wood and stuff like that. Anyway, and that was why was that popular? Because it required a lot of work and it meant it was expensive, so there was value there, so it became popular. But that came the Industrial Revolution, and things that were really complicated to do were also really easy to replicate. So the problem with the Industrial Revolution, and the first time when the Industrial Revolution happens, the style they copied was still the Victorian style. So we got extremely ornamented things being sold, but they no longer have that value of being unique. They are now easy to replicate, and everybody has them, and so people don't like them. So some guy from Berlin named Ludwig Mies. No, not yet. Sorry. Now it is. This guy entered the scene, and a lot of people were questioning the overwork, especially he's again an architect. And funny story, you know, the fact that the name was Ludwig Mies and then Wanda. The Wanda is a skeomorphism. He added that because it made his name sound cooler. I agree. It's a good skeomorphism. But it's not needed. It's not needed at all to represent his name. So what this guy was doing on his daily work, he was doing like neoclassical buildings, and it was silly, and everybody was saying that it was silly to create the columns and the portal, when beneath those make-believe rocks or very thin rocks, there was a steel frame that was holding all of the things together. So he was questioning, and a lot of people was questioning, but what makes him unique is that it was the first one to actually produce something not in that style, is the need for that. So he pushed for something completely different. It's depending on how you search for it, this is the Barcelona or the German pavilion in the Barcelona World Fair. This is a reconstruction because the original one is gone, and it's like the first building of modernism, of the modern age. It's very clean, as you see. It's actually a very beautiful building, in a way. He coined the phrase "less is more." This is a phrase that I think all designers should know, right? KISS, less is more, things like that. We should always try to do that sort of to have that sort of design approach to whatever we create. And what it is mostly is, well, it's setting the form follows function. We should get away with anything that we don't need, all of that. So yeah, we have one of the things that the modernists would say, and still there's a big debate with modernists, is that yeah, we have this system, amazing, it's going to solve everything. We should apply this system all over the place, get rid of all of the non-essential objects like decorations, like classical references to other styles, and just give to the user whatever the user needs. So stick to that. So, great. it's going to last forever. Not really. By the end of this century, people started to question the modernism. We have Berlin's a good example. This building itself here is a very modern-like building. But people started to question the need for, if that was all it was, if all that we would have to stick with that almost religion, people called the modernism a religion of tackling design problems. And they coined new phrases like class is a bore. It's a very smart way of deconstructing the problem. What they in architecture end up doing is they started incorporating, in the start, they started reincorporating things from the past, other elements, things that reminded people of their social background, their religion, things. They thought about the emotional aspect that objects have or buildings have, and incorporated those on the buildings. One of the good examples is a building I actually don't like, but it's a Sony skyscraper. You can look it up. That has a big classic, neoclassic frame on top for no good reason, but it's there. The thing is that currently we live in our designs are in reality the thing that we had, or what they say we had, is postmodern. It incorporated a lot of elements from other styles. We mix and match to see what works. I think everybody does minimalistic design. The postmodernism is not really a new style. It's just modernism with a part of elements that bring that emotional aspect into objects. Still going very much with form follows function, but giving the object something more of an emotional attachment to the object. So what they say, these guys, is that the superfluous things that past elements, that the late design trends add were not so superfluous. They brought something to the user experience, to the perception of the consumer. This is one of Frank Gehry's buildings. Everybody knows them. This is the Walt Disney thingy, Opera House or something. And I think you can still notice obvious that it's obviously modern. It's simple, clean lines, but there's absolutely no need for the weird shapes, and still they are there. And it, to me at least, it makes me feel something. And to say that, that's also I think that one of the things that modernism on modern buildings failed to look at is that in their simplicity, in their cleanness, they make you feel something. They do carry emotional package with them that they were trying to pretend it was not there, but I always thought it was there. It was just under the radar for them. So, okay, let's looking back at if we look back at the other article, the article I'm referring to, what they were trying to do was to map and say that, yeah, user interface design and user experience design evolved into becoming the Victorian style. And now comes modernism, the new modernism for computers, and it's gone, it's toast. So if we map this to architecture, and we see what happened to modernism, that it kind of died in a way and gave space to postmodernism, then authentic design is also toast and it's going to die. So we don't need to care about it. Not really, for several reasons. First, I think that the comparison they were making was wrong when they were comparing, and I already said this, when they were comparing the late design, the Windows Vista or whatever, to what we have now, and saying that that was an equivalent to the Victorian age design. I think it's wrong. What that was obviously postmodern. It was minimalistic in ways. They tried to because I don't know a designer that has not the word less is more, right? We all been hammered with that concept that keep your design simple. Yet we still wanted to create some sort of emotional relationship with the user, and start to set a tone or something a little bit less tangible than just sticking with form follows function. So what I'm saying is that we were in fact living in a purely postmodern age. And what I'm saying as well is that this thing that we have now, this new surge of minimalistic design, is nothing more than another expression of postmodernism. That it's looking at modernism the same way as postmodernists have been looking at everything else in the past. So I think that we are looking at modernism as something we can include in our designs in terms of embellishing them. It's not pure modernism. What I believe is that we have now a surge of including modernism inside postmodernism as one of their traits, one of their influences, which is kind of weird and backwards. So the second part is, couldn't we just ignore, like for developers, this is a talk that is for designers and developers. So couldn't we just ignore these guys and do what's best for the user? It doesn't really work like that. When I was studying for being a civil engineer, one of the classes that I enjoyed the most was urbanism class. And urbanism thinks about the group, doesn't think about the individual building or whatever. And one of the most interesting things I've learned there is what we tend, as a global, as the consumer or as the people or the mass tends to consider something beautiful, is order and repetition. That's why you go to a city and you go to like the medieval district and everybody comes out and saying, oh, this is so pretty, this is so beautiful. And go to the modern district and this is so pretty, this is so beautiful. And some cities don't really work. And those cities where people think, oh, this is so ugly, tend to be cities that lack the order, that have a medieval building next to a modern one, next to a shack, and there's lack of order. And people tend to understand order or tend to see beauty in order. There's a lot of papers about that and how we perceive order, and perceive order as beautiful. So this is why I placed this little image with order being created and different things. So the thing is, because our users live in this space right now and they perceive these patterns appearing, if our app is very different from what else is being done in the grand scheme of things, especially on the desktop, your app is going to look ugly, even though we've probably done a fantastic app with following good rules and with good intentions. Not caring about what's going on the outside doesn't really work well for consumer perception, because we are all in this together. So who's a developer, by the way? Great. What do you care? Okay. The conclusion for all of that talk is that designers will keep on changing their minds. It's a fact of life. We keep on changing our minds, and worse, even if we didn't want to, someone else will, and we'll be forced to change our minds. You guys have to deal with crazy designers that come up with radically different ideas from Monday to Friday, and give you a lot of work for that. So Qt helps a lot, because you should try really to separate the, everybody says this, right? The logic, the business logic of your apps from the upper areas, and try to, so that every time a designer comes and tries, oh, I have this great idea, it's going to save us all forever, and we're never going to change this, you'll say, sure, and change whatever you want without affecting all the other hard work you've done over the years on your app. Another thing that you might ask, like, so aren't you guys going to, it's the equivalent of widgets. And for QML it would be components or widgets or whatever. Can't we just use them? And so when porting an app, it magically snaps to another user interface paradigm, so because of the declaration of the button change or whatever. Doesn't really work like that. It's very visible in the mobile space. If you check most of the popular apps, they use some sort of components from the platform, but there's a lot of custom made things for that specific app. So even in the mobile, you see that. You see this. On the desktop, whenever you change, and you see this in Metro UI, whenever you change the concept really hardly, the interaction itself changes. It's not just the shape of the button that is no longer is more square or more round, has more drop shadow or has less drop shadow. It's the interactional paradigm that changes, and you see this more and more. So, and this needs to be done, really done on the low level, on the interactional part. So no. The second part is that designers can have fun too. So please let your designers suffer the pains that you suffer. Let them, and especially with QML, let them try QML, let them have fun with it. Because I personally have a lot of fun trying to come up with these solutions and not being such a pain to my developers and complaining about weird things like that's 1 pixel off or half a pixel off. So please fix it. And they so let the designers, please try to make designers be part of the problem, so they understand the developer's problem, and they can experiment a little bit, because many times ideas that we have on the while developing concepts, they make perfect sense in our brain. We write them down, we create very pretty mock-ups, we send them to you guys, you implement it, best of your knowledge, and it doesn't work. And it can be that the concept worked really well in the designer's brain, maybe it was implementation, it wasn't perfect, but it's very hard to fix this because those two guys will be speaking very different languages, and developers speak developerish, and designers speak googly bop. And it seems like it's impossible. And the QML and things like that really help, because it creates a very easy and common language between the two. And it's much easier. I've experimented with this several times. It's much easier to send a full QML working mock-up with mock data, something, list models, and things like that to the developer, because he really gets it. He sees all of the crazy numbers I get there, and you're crazy. Put crazy numbers all over the place. This is not the way to code. I don't care, because he can understand what I'm trying to do, what type of experience I'm trying to deliver. All of the animations will be there, all of the transitions will be there, and for the developer, it's much easier to clean up the code and deliver that, and even for me to review as well. So that was my talk. Let me see. So. Yeah.
Okay, do we have any questions for Nuno? Sorry, Nuno, questions.
So you said we should let the designers share in the fun of trying to implement a UI. Do you have any suggestions for if the designers are resistant to that, if they don't want to try QML?
Let me talk to him. No, really. How do you catch him in that? Different designers have. There's not one designer. There's several types of designers. There's the interaction guys that don't even care about how it looks. They care about how it functions. There's the Photoshop designers that care really about pixel perfection and doing very pretty mockups, and then there's the Flash designers. I would start with those guys, the guys that used to do the old mockups, the Flash mockups. I would start with them because QML is, well, it's better than Flash to start with from a programmatic point of view, and those would be a good designer type to tackle. I've been trying to get the Photoshop guys. It's not too difficult because the way you just need to present the tool to them, maybe show them the scripts where you get to import everything from Photoshop or Illustrator into Qt Creator, and show them how exactly it's being mapped the same way, and just show him like, okay, so your animation, you can do it like this. Just show that and see if he gets interested. The most problematic designer group that I think will be more complicated to get in board is the ones that do the interaction, the wireframing and stuff like that. For that, it will be good that Qt Creator add a wireframe mockup system, because that would be like the starting point, and it could create one tool that could do the entire flow, the entire design development, UI development paradigm could be done with one tool. I think that would be quite well.
So do you still think they're speaking the same language when the designers are using a tool interface and the developers are just looking at the QML code generated?
Yeah, then you don't have to ask what's the position of the. Have you seen the documentation that comes out of one of those companies that do proper? It's a stack of paper, and nobody cares. Like, you just want to know, like, where do you want the button? What do you want the button to do? And there's like this huge amount of data that nobody has the patience. And this is true for developers, the developer designer, but it's also true among designers. Designers themselves have this problem. When when somebody hands me over wireframes, I'll just browse through them really quickly, see what the hell, because it looks so ugly. Come on, now I want to start doing my thing, and I'll start implementing and creating pretty mockups for delivering the Flash guy. Currently, I'm the Flash guy, but it used to be like that. So yeah, the tool is useful among designers as well, not just for. I believe so. That's my belief.
Okay, so this is related to what Alan just asked you, but okay, so to summarize, why would we want to have designers working with QML?
Because well, honestly, I would like one of our developers here, because he can have like the feedback, like, because they have the experience of me doing the QML and delivering to them, and they freaking out because my variable names are crazy. But the way we think about QML, the way a designer looks at it, and the way we came up with different ways of playing with it is so much outside of the box of the way you guys tend to think, that you think, okay, there's value here. this guy can deliver. And we have solutions for problems that you guys sometimes have struggled really a lot with. And we have, because our training is mostly on layering images, how to do tricks with images, create effects, all of that in a 2D world, very similar to QML. We can map the experience and transpose that experience into QML. Also, all of that problems about like animations. Animations are a pain. If it needs to be tested, it really needs to be tested, and the test period between on the traditional model between the designer and developer takes forever, especially if they are working in different offices, which is quite common. It's like a week to do one test of one interaction. Where if the designer is actually trying to do those animations, I can actually test it and see, oh, it makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. I can try it a little bit like this, a little bit like that, and do all of that a lot quicker. And when I deliver it to the developer, maybe there will be feedback, but the feedback is in a completely different level. The point that we reach, at least the designer itself should be happy with the interaction, which saves a lot of time, hopefully.
As a C++ guy, I tend to, well, I do a little bit of Photoshop myself, but it's more for fun than for real applications. So when I have to deliver an application that looks specific to a domain business, like I did a video app, so it has to be black and look like Adobe Premiere, look like Final Cut, etc., etc. So I was looking for a Q style. I found Manhattan style, I found Fusion style, and that's pretty much it. Why do you think we don't have a Q style library?
Having done I've done the Oxygen style. Well, designed the Oxygen style, not code the Oxygen style. Styles are not trivial to make at all, especially if you want them to be a little bit more than what widgets or whatever they call them are supposed to do. So the problem with the lack of styles, to me, is that it's not easy at all to make them. It's not trivial at all, and I'm really hoping they figure out where styles are going, where widgets are going, and whatever the future is for them in the QML scene world. Because there's a lot of things that I can do in QML that I would love to be able to do with traditional buttons, especially the abstraction between mouse areas and the physical form of the object. That is so useful for other things with layering and stuff like that. But yeah, my answer is because it's not trivial at all to make them, and you really need a developer and a not half good. It really needs to be a good developer to do a good style, and a designer that can talk with them. That's the reason I think we don't have much styles in Qt, widget styles.
Okay, thank you.
So let's talk for a while about platforms. Desktop. If you take three of them, Windows, Mac, Linux, they are completely okay. Not necessarily completely, but really different. They feel absolutely different.
And they are divergent.
So what should be the guidelines? How to deal with it if you really have to follow a platform or more platforms in one package, in one software?
As I was saying, abstract as much as you can the business logic of your app and try to make the UI layer as thin as possible. Keep the UI and the UX living right above so that you can easily adapt. Again, Qt helps, and there are things that I don't know what the future will bring. If QML inside the desktop will help, I'm sure it will, but it takes really, really, really good design to make it work. It's not something that comes out of the box and works. It requires work to make it work.
Okay, let's get a bit harder. what to do in a case you are a developer and you must play a role of a designer because your company doesn't have any designer. I think I'm not alone. You're not alone. I know it.
Honest. Not easy. First question: are you good enough? The design is not. It's not something that you can train. You can get better on, but there's a certain natural skill that comes with someone that has that skill of understanding design on a very, I don't know, I really can't explain it. It doesn't. I'm not even a proper designer. I didn't got design training at all. But I've noticed that it does take a certain type of people, and you can point them out to be a good designer. And I know a lot of developers that they do care a lot about design, and they have a good design feeling. They see issues that most people don't see, or people tend to see the issues. That's the thing. People see the issue, but they can't point them. And the difference is that the good designer normally can point the issues that people say, oh, I don't like this for. And it's terrible because people tend to have an excuse for don't liking something, but most of the time it's not. It's just their interpretation of their annoyance with something. It's not really what's making them not like or like something. So the difference is that the designer or the guy with a little bit of feeling for these things will know what that thing is, and they'll be able to tackle it. So yeah, if you have that sort of skills, you should push on it. If you don't, I don't know, hire someone to do it.
To take a little bit of weight from your shoulders, I'm I'm officially a designer at my company as well as a basic web developer and software developer, and we are currently running Qt 4.8 and with a widget style software that's on desktops as well as mobile, and we want to go over to QML in the future, but what is the best way of approaching this so that the core developers they are a little bit against it. They want to rewrite as less code as possible. So it's hard to convince them and to find a conclusive way for every.
They should attend a QML course. There were a few, and it explains how they can hook the QML into with their C++ logic and all the things they already have. And you should try to learn a little bit about QML. You'll love it, by the way. If you do web design, QML is like, haha.
I come from web design and
So you know CSS and
all the stuff. So the first part of
you'll just love it. It's just like, oh, finally this works.
I would love to have this on the internet.
Yeah.
Would this be a KDAB training course by any chance? Okay, one line.
No, just to follow up your question, I mean, do you have any resources for developers that want to know more about design?
I don't know. I don't know if it works like that, honestly.
Okay, but actually, I mean seriously, if you look at all the different mobile companies like Nokia, Apple, BlackBerry, they all have pretty good sections on design, and then you're
yeah. Well, I know that there's people like Kathy Sierra who's talking a lot about and user experience. So maybe do you have any one you would recommend or any?
Well, like there's a formal book. There's the Bibles, the Norman. Everybody should read Norman. Everybody should read the Norman stuff. So especially because the Bible and the second book are kind of contradictory. They speak a lot of what I was speaking about. The first part is very about form and function and things like that, and the second book, which I love, is about the other thing, the intangible parts of design that create objects that we fell in love with for no apparent good reason. We can spend days talking about why we love them, but we really can't nail it down. That's the interesting part about design, I think, the emotional aspects and those sort of things. But Norman is a good book. The Norman books are really good to look into.
Okay, I think we've hit the end there. Please show your appreciation for naturally skilled Nuno.
Thank you.